What are we reviewing? I
You
can't say reviewing.
Well, then that's a problem. That's a review channel. I can't say it either.
Say review.
Review.
What are we reviewing?
The.
Say. Oh. Say what are we reviewing?
What are we reviewing? We are reviewing the first episode of Patrick Melrose on Sky Atlantic.
Yeah, it's Sky Atlantic.
There you go.
Based on the quintet of novels by Edward St. Aubyn. What a great name.
And I was really confused because I thought Patrick Melrose had written them.
So no, the Patrick Melrose character, all of the individual books have different names, I forget them all,
Right.
but the character that runs throughout them is Patrick Melrose, who is a aristocratic heroin addict.
Who has had the most appalling childhood. We're led to believe all the way through the film as we go into flashback that he's been sexually abused by his father.
Yes.
And his father is a brutal
Sort of
pig of a man.
Sort of almost from the Raj, wasn't he? He was sort of
Yeah.
a member of the Raj, that
Yeah.
sort of
Last days
upper
of
class
Raj.
British soldiery type. So the books are, I understand, semi-autobiographical, i.e. they're based on Edward St. Aubyn's life in part. The series has been adapted for the small screen by David Nichols, who you really loved, who wrote One Day, One Day, which was
And of course,
very good.
Patrick Melrose is played by the brilliant Benedict Cumberbatch. Cucumberpatch.
Benedict
Cumberbatch.
Cumberbatch. Cumberpatch? Cumberbatch. Now, I've had a sort of hate-hate relationship with Benedict Cumberbatch because I've found him virtually annoying in everything I thought I'd seen him in until Doctor Strange, the Marvel series. And I thought, oh, he's got a sense of
Do you
humour.
know, I was affected, and this often will happen with me and actors, by an interview that I read and I didn't like him, and then I didn't like the way he came across.
Oh no!
And that's awful, isn't it? When you then
Yes.
judge. But who am I to judge? I could have just had a bad day. But oh my God, this is a tour de force of a performance. We
Remarkable.
were absolutely gripped from beginning to end. We did let our 15-year-old watch it. And
That's
actually,
who's coughing in the background.
Yeah, and actually, I think it was the right decision because kids know about drugs. You know, what are we saving them from? We can't censor. There's no censorship anymore. And my God, if something's going to put you off drugs, that
Well, I have to say, I mean,
performance
I thought it was one of the most, tour de force is the word, and I saw a review somewhere describe it as Hamlet on heroin, which is quite a good description because his portrayal of a man who's in the grip of addiction, and obviously my addiction is primarily alcohol. I was primarily alcohol, 15 years sober now, but I related so absolutely to the layers and levels of paranoia, second by second regret, second by second fear, second by second agitation.
And it's a really good device that they use, that he's talking to himself all the time. So you hear his in voiceover,
Because you do.
the madness of the addiction. And he puts himself in so many, all the way through the film, you keep
Oh my
thinking he's
God.
going to die. He puts himself in the most dangerous situations.
Most dangerous
doesn't he?
situations.
But at the same time, he's extraordinarily wealthy.
Yeah.
So all the locations are beautiful. So aesthetically, it's all just...
Oh, it's just stunning.
It's just stunning.
It's beautifully shot, and in a weird way, they managed to match the sort of hallucinatory nature of his drug taking. He takes quaaludes. He's injecting heroin into every conceivable part of his
inject
body.
whiskey?
He injected cocaine. He injects whiskey in one of the later books, I think.
If you're squeamish, this one isn't
If you're
for you.
screaming, and yet within him there is this heartbreaking character who's that scene where he was with the girl, the lady who he wanted to have a relationship with, and a desperation to connect with people and a desperation to get away from the horror and the hangover of his father's abuse of him.
But he's also extremely debonair, isn't he? He's very debonair, raffish at points, and very, very watchable. So this isn't, though he is in a total crisis, drug crisis, he also manages to be a bit like, reminiscent though not funny at all, with Nail and I. there's this
Yeah,
very
similar.
theatrical
That's a
sort
good parallel.
of. Yeah.
But there were a couple of moments where I was laughing, and you looked at me with sort of almost like, how can you laugh at that?
No, right at the beginning when he was, because I thought I didn't want you settling in for a comedy.
No. But what I was laughing about, when I go to AA meetings and I sit and I share about the horror stories of what one's gone through and what one's done and what other people have done, one of the major ways to get through some of the things you've experienced is a deeply gallows humour. And I think that this film, this series, has got its gallows humour right on its cuff, but it successfully doesn't manage to just humorise you out of how clearly traumatising the addictions are for him. So you get scenes of great humour, you get scenes of great silliness, but you're constantly, and this is Benedict Cumberbatch's a great skill, you're constantly tugged back to the terribly broken and damaged and hurting individual inside. I mean, and
his physicality. I mean,
there's
a scene they're in a beautiful restaurant bar in New York. Him and this woman and he drinks martinis all the way through, and he's taken quaaludes. And he walks around the perimeter of this gallery, doesn't he, where they sit? And it was, I mean, though it was tragic, it was so funny because it was
Well, he was attached to the wall.
Brilliant.
How did he do it?
Absolutely
I mean,
brilliant.
I can only believe he's analysed, but also he must have analysed and researched drug taking because he and the nervousness and the immediacy with which he needed another drink in the drink and the shake, and there was one scene where he was pouring a drink with his shaking hand, and it was just like I was getting all these sort of flashbacks to just the horror and the entrapment and the waking up and the looking around and the carnage and the mess, and then scenes of
Mark kept running around looking for vitamins as we were watching it.
I know. I just needed to find sort of legitimate narcotics. But I thought it was an incredibly powerful film, and there was sort of. Did you find that the upperclassness of it alienated at all?
No, I was fascinated because I like looking into other worlds of which I know nothing about. You know, the Old Gentleman's Club and the Boys Network, and
do you think?
I mean, it was impeccably styled.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I really cannot recommend this highly enough. It is a 10 out of 10.
It's a 12 out of 10. I would go so far as to say it's the best thing I've seen on TV in about 3 years. Just that one episode.
I was almost worried about doing this review because I thought, will it be a boring review? Because all we can do is just keep saying that every single thing was brilliant. I want to read the book now because... And Benedict Cumberbatch, if there was only a Oscar...
He's got to win a BAFTA. He's got to win a BAFTA.
But he needs an Oscar. That's
he does need an Oscar. But you know what? Here's the thing. He didn't win the Oscar for the thing. You know when he played Alan Turing in the... What was the name of that film? Maddie, do you remember the name of the film that he was in where he played the guy in World War II that Nanny Thelma liked?
God.
In The Imitation Game, I think a lot of people felt he was due an Oscar. He was grief-stricken when he didn't get that, and Eddie Redmayne got it for whatever it was. Yeah, Eddie Redmayne was in.
Stephen Hawking thing.
Yes, Stephen Hawking, that's right. And so I think he's put all of his unacknowledged skill, pent-up frustration at not being he's gone all into this part.
That's not how it
No, I know, and it's not how it happens. But I also think it does help, it plays to his strengths, that he's actually playing close to type. It's a privileged individual.
Well, I mean, his intelligence, I mean, the intellect, like we were saying to Maddie, who wants to be an actress as well, the layers, where he's gone to, the graft that he's gone to get that level of he inhabited that character. God knows what it was like for him when he went home at the end of the day from filming. I cannot know, but because he didn't act at all. He was him, wasn't he?
Yeah, within this highly crafted series. It's beautifully shot, beautifully edited, stylized, but it doesn't get in the way of it. His story's real. The hallucinations, you're just every single second, it's fizzing. It's so good. You have to turn this off and go and watch it.
Yeah, we can't actually say anymore because
in
we'll
fact,
just be repeating ourselves.
We're boring.
10 out of 10. Do everything you can to see it. It's okay, look away at the hypodermic needle a bit. You have to see this.
Benedict Cumberbatch, BAFTA,
We
Oscar,
salute you.
Emmy.